JP, is there anything to be read into, the reports that we're seeing over the last few weeks, last few months that you're not seeing Allen and Snyder as much together as you have in the past? Like when they're walking on the field, there's distance between them, or Snyder's on one end of the field, Allen's on the other, or Snyder's in his box, getting cozy with Alex Smith and other people, and there's less Bruce Allen seen in close proximity to Daniel Snyder. Do you read anything into that at this point?
I do, honestly, just because it's such a stark difference from how things have been. For years, when Dan was at practice, Bruce would walk him out there. And then often other people, like I somehow think the reports have gotten it to be where it was just Dan and Bruce all the time. But often Doug would be with them or Eric Schaefer, but the two of them were almost always together. I mean, whenever we saw them, and the media's not around all the time, the media doesn't get to stay for the entire practice, but when Dan was there, it almost always seemed like Bruce was right next to him. And I would say, I mean, since October, that hasn't been the case. Now, they're still together in spots. I know in the Green Bay game, they came into the locker room before the game together. I was told that by a few different sources. So, I mean, it's not like they're not speaking, but their relationship just seems very, very different than what it was even the beginning of the season in training camp. I don't know what that means, but I don't think it means nothing. I mean, stuff that's as simple as, Bruce Allen, so there's, and you guys have been around FedEx Field, I assume, kind of back behind the locker room and the tunnels that are below the stadium. I mean, that's the parking, right? Like you get to park in there. That's the best there is. And obviously, Dan is the owner of the team. He parks down there. Bruce Allen either always had a car service or a car or was riding with Dan. That was always where I kind of saw him coming and going from.
Yeah.
The Eagles game, he was parked, across the street in the employee parking lot.
That's
and
crazy.
Fans saw him. I had fans tweeting me pictures of that.
That's so crazy.
I mean, maybe they were just out of parking spots. I don't know. Like, you don't want to make too much out of individual events that could be coincidental. But when they continue to happen over and over, it's just you start to notice it. You can't help it.
Yeah, no. I think where there's smoke, there's fire, and there's something real to it. But by the same token, we had Grant Danny in here yesterday at the end of the show. And Grant says he had a bunch of people texting him that Bruce and Dan were recently at the owners' meetings or whatever it was, and they were yucking it up like old times, like nothing's ever changed.
Right. That was last week in Texas.
Yeah.
Bruce was there, certainly. And, I mean, even earlier this week, the kind of the first real meetings for 2020 draft prep started. Mm-hmm. All of the Redskins area scouts were in Ashburn. So think about it, you got guys flying in from all over the country for those meetings. And this is the super base level. I mean, they're talking about UDFAs and seventh-round picks. I mean, they build up slowly to the top of their draft board. But Bruce Allen's leading those meetings like he always has. So is there some smoke? Certainly, but this dude's also a firefighter. Like, you never know. Bruce Allen has dodged so many bullets with the organization, embarrassing situations. The record is what it is. I mean, the record is so bad that you almost don't need to point to anything else for why could this happen, but it's never happened in 10 years. So, don't believe it till it's all the way official.
So I see that, I'm just seeing this now. I didn't catch this yesterday, but D. Hall, you have a photograph of D. Hall at practice, and he's hanging out with Bruce. And D has publicly said, right, he'd love to work in the front office, specifically, I think, with the Redskins. Is there any way Bruce can kind of buffer himself by hiring a guy like D. Hall, by maybe doing something officially with Alex Smith, and then somehow Bruce can still sort of weaselly still kind of stick around? You know what I mean? Is there any way he could do that?
I certainly. I mean, I don't know that I expect that to happen, but much like when McLuhan got fired and Doug Williams got a major promotion, they can always kind of reshuffle things over there. The names that I would consider are Alex, certainly. Alex is very close with Dan at this point.
Yeah.
And I believe their families have gotten close. But, you know, the real question there is Alex really going to try to get back on the football field? It's almost a separate discussion, but if Alex does get back on the football field, this team has a gigantic mess on their hands. Because what do you do with the first-round rookie draft pick you just selected, who, against the Eagles, showed real promise? And what if he closes the season strong against the Giants and the Cowboys? And then you have Alex coming back. What are you going to do there?
You can't.
But the likelihood of that, I mean, it's not happening.
I don't think it's very likely.
It's not happening.
But if, in my opinion, Alex, we love what you've done, but you're going to be the backup, and you're going to help, you know, get Dwayne Haskins where he needs to be.
Listen, God bless Alex. No doctor's going to clear him to take contact with that leg, with all those surgeries, all those procedures. And, I mean, by the way, did anybody take a look at his leg when they posted like those Halloween pictures or whatever? And his leg looks so bloated, and I mean, it's just not right. It's not right. Like,
I don't think he's ever going to play.
It's not. He's not going to play again.
Yeah. And I think he's definitely going to have a role with this organization.
Yeah.
But here's the thing: is that he is still guaranteed so much money for 2020 that they'd have to reach an injury settlement. They'd have to get the union to approve it. A lot of things would have to happen for him to transition off the salary cap and off their team payroll for 2020, even if he is shifting into a front office role, that I don't think it'll happen. I think he could have another year similar to this one where he's very close with Dan, but technically he's a part of the roster, has a locker in the locker room, those sorts of things.
Right.
D-Hall openly wants a job, and D-Hall told me, he's like, I'm not trying to be GM tomorrow. I just want to get in there and start working and learning. The other name is Chris Cooley. I think Cooley, I mean, you know, between his work on his podcast and TV and all that stuff, the film breakdowns, I mean, clearly that guy understands offensive football on a high level.
He's close with Bruce.
Close with Bruce, close with Dan. And Cooley has worked the combine before. Cooley knows personnel. I wouldn't count him out of a role. The story I've said before is that I remember talking with Cooley before the 2018 draft, and the dude he loved was Lamar Jackson. And he didn't necessarily love him for the Skins because at the time they had just taken Alex Smith.
Right.
But for a guy the league was so split on pre-draft, I remember Chris telling me he's going to be unstoppable in the NFL.
And that's on the right side of it.
In my head.
JP,
yeah, for sure.